Welcome to Michigan Reimagined, a Spotlight podcast. And here's your host, Chris Buck.
So anyone who follows college sports understands that student athletes and the work they perform on the court or the field is big business. And it's been contested over the years that these athletes should get paid beyond the scholarships that many receive for their work. Well, name, image, and likeness revenue has been recently approved. And here to discuss what that means, how it works, and how one local university is helping student athletes navigate this process is the Director of Player Relations and Program Advancement for Michigan State University Football, Darien Harris, and the President of Capital National Bank, Ed Harden. Welcome to the show, Darien and Ed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So, Ed, let's start with you. So, Capital National Bank recently hosted an event at its headquarters to present this information to some interested parties. What prompted you to do that, and how did it go?
You know, the Capital National Bank, you know, the key, as I look at it, is helping our businesses grow and prosper. Mm-hmm. And when I saw NIL, I thought this is or name, image, likeness.
Yep.
This is an opportunity for our customers to market their companies more efficiently, more effectively. And so I was speaking with Darien, and I said, hey, what do you think about this as an idea? We said, yeah, it might work. You know, might work. People have a lot of questions about this. So we hosted this event, and it was standing room only. I mean, it's absolutely remarkable. And the questions, people hung around afterwards for a long time. It was almost like a speed networking thing with business cards flying everywhere, or, touching phones to share contact information. It was really cool. And I think, you know, what Darien did was he brought to light, here's how Michigan State is doing it. This is how we're doing it correctly. And then we also had one of my good friends, Frank and Joe Spatafor from Twisters, who got up and said, yeah, here's what we're doing with Darius Snow, the D-Snow Flurry. And, you know, he's been out traveling around to all their locations, and it's just done great. So they talked about, here's really how it's working, and here's how it's helped our business, which I thought was awesome.
I got to tell you, last weekend I was driving around Kalamazoo, and there's a Twisters down there, and it had on the marquee that he was going to the D-Snow Flurry, meet him live like last Sunday or something.
Yep, and he's
like,
got
I know that guy.
Graphic design business that Darius is doing. I mean, it all tied together, right?
Right. So, Darien, talk a little bit about what you presented to this group. Kind of who made the decision that NIL is now kind of legal, and who's eligible to receive those kinds of agreements?
Well, the NCAA came out a year ago now, July 2021, and put into legislation that student athletes would be able to profit off their name, image, and likeness. The reason they had to do that is there were several states that were getting ready to pass their own laws. And in that case, what would have ended up happening is only student athletes in those states would have been able to profit off their name, image, and likeness, not anywhere else. You can imagine
really problematic
where that would have gone in terms of recruiting and I guess fairness and equity and things of that nature. So the NCAA just came in and made a blanket statement and said, if you have a state law, that comes first, but if not, then you can follow the NCAA law. So, for example, in the state of Michigan, our state law doesn't go into effect till 2023, so we follow the NCAA's rules, which are all ever changing. It changes by the day. In terms of the event at Capital National Bank, I just presented information first on essentially what we present our team and our recruits on our programs to allow our student athletes to have the education to benefit and profit off their name, image, and likeness, that being our overtime program, our player development platform, and our brand development platform entitled Define You, so that these businesses could see that our student athletes are well-versed in what they need to know to be able to represent a company, represent a brand. We don't want any brand to think that, you know, because you're dealing with 18 to 22-year-old kids, that they're just flying by the seat of their pants and out there just trying to make some money. No, we have a strict, regimented program to educate them on what it means to actually be a sponsored, endorsed partner within a business. But the other thing I really wanted to touch on is just the fact that a lot of what you hear and see out on social media when it comes to NIL is just not true. The Spatafors touched on it with their deal with Darius. They said we took a leap of faith because we thought originally we didn't have the parameters, we didn't have the infrastructure to do NIL, whether it was the amount they thought they had to pay an athlete or just the ability to do it, because these astronomical numbers are getting flown out and thrown out there that just aren't true. It's really about local partnerships and local business opportunities for our student athletes to really delve into the community. And I think that just putting a lot of those myths to rest was really what this was about for me.
I think there was another aspect to it, too, that we touched on during the meeting was This wasn't just for football.
Right. Absolutely.
Right.
Basketball. I think we wound up doing something with soccer.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Have you had any other positive interactions since we did this?
Well, again, it was just about connections for me. So, what as a university employee, I can't facilitate a deal. So it's not about me sitting around and being the mediator between the deal. But what I can do is connect some dots. And I think that, as Ed just touched on, it's not just about football or men's basketball. It's about all student athletes. So you have a company that had a real big interest in soccer. Okay, let's see how we can connect you to the soccer program. And it just happened that there was somebody there whose son is the captain of the soccer team. So there's your connection right there that I really had nothing to do with. It was just they all came to one, they congregated at one event, and then they were able to connect their own dots. So that's really, again, what it was about, is that connection, that networking piece, and realizing you don't have to partner with a football or a basketball player. It's whoever aligns with you and your business and what you're trying to put out there to the world.
Got it. So just to wind it back just a little bit. So name, image, and likeness, right? So this is not local boosters just stroking checks for people for no return. That's always still going to be illegal, right? So
absolutely.
And they're not employees. It's not like an internship per se for some company. They're kind of like you watch, say, LeBron James out there with, I don't even know if he's Nike or Adidas or who he represents, right? But you've got, Michael Jordan with Nike and all that kind of stuff. So these people are doing that same kind of thing. They can go to like autograph signing things, and they can, sell their jerseys. And so the real name, image, and likeness is really what it is all about.
Absolutely.
So they're endorsing a product.
Correct.
And they're out there doing kind of side work as an independent contractor, and they're receiving compensation for that for the first time.
I think one of the critical things that I learned is that Michigan State can't promote this on social media.
Right.
But you can follow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what are the numbers that you said were pretty staggering?
Right. So again, it's the student athletes utilizing their name, image, and likeness to promote a business. So we can't put out a press release that says one of our student athletes has struck this deal, this or that. We can, follow, and we can retweet without quote tweeting or things of that nature. But when you start looking at, the following with our social media, our players' social media, the athletics program, it's big numbers. It's huge numbers. And we we phrase it as this is a partnership between the student athlete and the business. So it can go deeper than just a social media endorsement or an advertisement or an autograph signing or an appearance. Student athletes can now own their own businesses. They couldn't do that before NIL. That's another big key as well. So talk about Darius and his graphic design business. He was able to utilize that in partnership with Twisters to make the graphics that you see on the outside of the Twisters locations. He made those graphics through his own business.
And they're great.
Yeah.
I mean, they're really
phenomenal.
good.
Absolutely.
The guy's talented.
So we push our student athletes to think bigger than just posting something on social media a few times a month and getting paid to do that. All that stuff's great, but you can be a business owner. You can be an entrepreneur. You can now have a nonprofit. You can do a kids camp. You can do a youth camp. There's a myriad of different things that literally 2 years ago you were not allowed to do that you can now do with the passing of these laws.
Okay. So as you mentioned, these are 18 to 22-year-olds, so their heads are spinning, and a lot of times they can get starry-eyed on, it's like, well, you're here to learn.
Right.
Academics certainly plays a part in this. You've got the commitment for athletics, but now you've got this opportunity to also make money, and it's got to take a maturity or mentoring to keep their heads on straight and point them in the right direction. And then there's also the statistic that I don't have of how many people are playing D1 athletics that are done when they graduate, right? The opportunity to move on into professionals and getting paid for that sport. So this is an opportunity for them to step into some sort of a revenue stream income, to maybe set them up, whether it's like Snow, who's got, this cash coming in from this now, but he's also he's starting this other business that he's starting to get some PR on. So I don't know, unpack some of that as far as life after the sport and then how does Michigan State University help these students really uncover that? And do you feel like MSU is doing it a little bit differently than other schools? Because everyone's kind of making this up as they go along, I would imagine.
No doubt. I believe we are. So that was another one of the programs I went over at the event. We have what's called the Overtime Program that I facilitate through MSU Football, and that's our player development platform. We say that we holistically develop the 360-degree student athlete. That means that you can do it all at Michigan State. So those numbers, of course, and those percentages are out there for who makes it to the big leagues and who doesn't. But we don't even talk about that. That's to us, it's not necessary to go into. We call it the one track of success. One track of success. So everything you're doing is going to lead up to your ultimate goal and your ultimate passion. And you can do it all along the way. You can come into Michigan State, you can build your brand, you can get a great education, you can leave with 2 degrees if you want, you can have a great career, you can network, you can have all these resources and get an opportunity to play in National Football League while also having started a business and have NIL deals. You can do it all if you just follow the structure and if you really hunker down and put the focus to what it's supposed to be. So, yes, NIL has added another piece to that 360-degree, student athlete, but it all works into what we do. So whether that's entrepreneurship training, financial literacy, education and application, the brand building piece, personality development, public speaking training, career services, career training, career development, like that's all worked into our program, and it's all regimented, and it's all what I like to say is intentional. So take financial literacy, for example, because we're in the middle of a 5-week financial literacy course with our guys. We don't do anything just one time. We do it over a myriad of different weeks, and then we have follow-up. We're using their real figures, the money they're getting from scholarship, the money they're getting from NIL, the money they're getting from cost of attendance, FAFSA, Pell Grant, and we're working that into our program so they can see what they have coming in and what they have going out, and then figure out how to utilize that in their best interest instead of just giving them round numbers that they're not used to. So that's things that are different that we're doing that's intentional so that they can actually have some takeaway, have investment accounts set up, start building your credit at the age of 18.
Right.
When most people don't start until,
Well, you talk about money in and then you mention money out.
Right.
I could see some of these kids receiving money that they've never seen before and just floating it around and buying stuff that really doesn't give them long value and being flashy and stuff. So again, there's almost a little bit of a parenting, it's
Absolutely.
like, hey, here's the ups and downs of decisions that you're going to make.
The one aspect that I thought was really intriguing was when you discussed home ownership.
Yeah.
And how that creates wealth. Mm-hmm. And that was nothing I thought about when I was 18. I wasn't thinking about buying a house.
Not at all.
I wish I had been.
Right.
I'd be in a lot better position today had I done that earlier. Right.
Absolutely. And it's part of our 4 pillars for the overtime program: our financial independence, established credit, investment portfolios, and first time home buyer ready. Which, as I explained and always explain, it's not about buying a house the day you leave college or even while you're in college, unless you have the opportunity to and turn it into an investment property or something like that. But it's just about understanding how. And understanding what it means. It's the number one way to build generational wealth. So if that's in your mind, now you're working towards it earlier maybe than the last generation or the generation before that. It's just about education. Everything that we do is education. NIL is education. So if we can put in their mind, hey, eventually you want to get to this point where you can own a home, then they're starting to think about that a little early on. And then here's what that means for you and your future family and the family you have now and being able to pass things down. The beauty of being kind of close in age to them is I'm going through things like right before they're about to go through it. So it's like really speaking from experience of, hey, this is what I'm going through at this stage of my life. You're going to hit this stage. Here's what I know, and here's what I wish I knew. So I'm going to tell you this before you even get to that stage. So then the cycle can just continue.
And you're going to get there in a blink.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It sneaks up on
literally.
You, right.
Now, you mentioned it's Design You, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's
Define You.
Define You.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I knew I had one of them was right and one was wrong. So the Define You, talk a little bit about that. I have heard you share an example of, these people have personalities, right? Not everyone's extroverted. Everyone's got their own style. Talk about how you help these people develop their brand and develop their voice.
Well, we have a very, very strong relationship with several motivational speakers. Eric Thomas being one. Ben Newman just started working with us, and another one, Sean Hardy's a former player at Michigan State. These gentlemen and also women who are in this field as well, they get paid a lot of money to tell their own story. So that's the first piece of it. It's your brand, your story. These student athletes have an unbelievable story to tell, no matter where they're from, where they came from, and where they're at now, especially in this day and age of social media and college athletics. You can benefit and profit off of just telling your story and telling it over and over and over again. But there's a certain way to do it. So we actually bring these folks in, of course, to motivate our team, but also to teach how do you tell your story? What are things to hit on? What are points to hit on? What's going to resonate with an audience? So once we start doing that, then we bring in the rest of the pillars. Playmaking is one, community engagement is one, social engagement, and then content creation. That all encompasses to define you, which at the top is, as you mentioned, it's just about defining yourself. It's not redefining. So we don't need to change who you are.
Sincerely projecting your story, right?
Exactly.
Don't act as if you're someone you're not.
Don't need to do that. Exactly.
No, that makes a lot of sense. There's a lot there, huh? So do you sense that there are other programs? I mean, this must have turned recruiting on its ear, right?
No doubt.
And so there are people that are sitting in, the middle of Nebraska saying, all right, and I'm a really good football player or basketball player, because you assume that these big money sports are probably going to have the biggest NIL opportunities. Are they saying, hey, Florida seems to be paying more than Wisconsin, or if I go to a Texas school versus a California school, the money's different, and is that starting to really taint people's decisions on where they want to play as opposed to just winning, playing for great coaches?
Absolutely. I mean, it would be it'd be naive to think that that's not taking place. But again, as we mentioned at the front of this, we're doing things right with NIL. So we're going to say, hey, every opportunity that you want is going to be here at Michigan State, but you also have to like where you go to school. There's no amount of money that's going to change that. You have to enjoy where you go to school, the culture, the program, the environment, like that all still needs to be a part of your decision. So again, it's our job to educate. So when these recruits are coming on visits and when those conversations start to arise, we say, hey, look, listen, whatever you're hearing out there or whatever you're interested in when it comes to NIL, you will have those opportunities in Michigan State. We can show examples. We can take you through our program. You will have those opportunities. But at the end of the day, you have to make a decision for you.
Right.
And we'll still be a resource whether you choose us or not. But here is some things that you should ask on your other visits. So here's some things that we're doing, and you say that we're doing everything better than anybody else, any place you've been, which should check the box for you automatically. But if it doesn't, that's okay. Here's what you should ask when you go to these other visits. And if another program is doing this just as well, fantastic. Again, this is about student athletes. Like, there's winning on the field, as you mentioned. That's competition all the time. But all this stuff off the field, this is not competition. Like, I want every student athlete to be going through the programs we're doing. So if there's a place that isn't, I'm going to share this information with another school and say, hey, this is working for us. Maybe you all should implement this too. And we hope that the student athletes, the recruits, their families are asking the right questions when they go on these visits, so they don't end up somewhere where they're either lied to or just end up somewhere where they don't like because they were chasing the money.
Right. So now, if there are small businesses or large businesses in town that want to partner with a student athlete, what role can you play and what role can't you play? Like, is there a queue of people that are like, hey, let me know if you've got someone interested in doing this? So
we've set up what's called the exchange, which makes it very easy for any business, any entity to get in touch with our student athletes. So it's just msuspartans.com/exchange. You can register for the exchange. Once you're uploaded into it, you will see all of our student athletes that are in there, and they will see you. So our student athletes are constantly going through the exchange, through their influencer app, and seeing, okay, I think this business aligns with me. I think that business aligns with me. And then student athlete can reach out, or you can reach out to the student athlete, and then your connection is made. It's literally like just giving them their phone number. It's the exact same thing.
And should they have agents, or can you help advise on what's a good fee, or like how does that work?
I can't help advise them on that. That's just part of this, but they can have agents. A few of our players do, not everybody. Sometimes, agent is your parents. Sometimes it's just you figuring this out. Now, through our education, we advise how do you vet an agent, how do you choose an agent, and just we give general understanding of how to put a contract together, how to put an agreement together, how to read a contract.
Right.
So they'll have that education going in. It's the same thing as getting a tutor with math and then going and taking the test. I can't take the test for them,
right,
but I can tutor you on the material. This is the exact same thing. I can tutor you through our partners and through who we bring in for education, and that's called our Evergreen program, which is our athletic department's NIL education platform, who we bring in to teach about money, contracts, due diligence, decision making. It's just like giving them the answers to the test, and then they go take the test. So then they go in with their checklist of things they ask and want to know before agreeing to a partnership. And they already know what to ask. They know what to look out for. So you're going in with a very well-versed student athlete who understands the rules.
Well, I'm proud of the work that you're doing. It's fantastic. You rattled off the website. Is that a site that people can use to learn more, or is that simply to load in on the exchange?
So that would load in on the exchange.
And what was that again?
MSUSpartans.com/exchange.
Okay.
And I believe there actually is some educational tools on there as well, just to really kind of dive into. But I can always teach about what NIL is. So I just can't sit down and say, here's a deal that you should do, or, create the numbers and the figures. But any entity can reach out to me and ask, and I can go over, here's what NIL is, here's what you can do, here's what you can't do, here's our school policy, and then here's how you get uploaded in the exchange. And then now you can go forth and partner with the student athlete.
So what's your email address?
Mine is Darien, DARIEN, @ATH.MSU.edu.
Well, the world of NIL is live and happening as we speak, and we've been speaking with the Director of Player Relations and Program Advancement for Michigan State University Football, Darien Harris, and the President of Capital National Bank, Ed Harden. Darien, Ed, I really appreciate it. We could talk for hours on this, but I appreciate you coming in and spending some time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.